You can scan this QR code. It's going to give you my presentation. Isn't that awesome? So you don't have to take notes. You don't have to memorize anything. So it's not going to be the exact presentation, like slide by slide. I've compressed it into just a few pages for you as a PDF, so don't worry if it doesn't look exactly the same. It's going to contain mostly the same information, but there's some information at the very end of it that it does not contain about my Sleep With My product that you might want to stay around for, okay? And thanks, guys. Some of you guys I recognize. Thanks for coming. Thanks, guys. Who am I? So some of you I've already met, but even if I have or have not met you, I'm just going to say a little bit about me so that you understand my background, okay? I'm founder and CEO of Sleep of Mind. It's this awesome company that basically believes that when you lower your anxiety, you can get better sleep. So when you're not anxious about your baby, when you're not anxious about your pocketbook, for example, because we do a lot to save people money, then you can get more sleep. And if you're getting more sleep, if everyone's getting more sleep, then it's going to be a better world, right? So that's our main goal, is to reduce anxiety so everyone can get more sleep. For a long time, I've been a child sleep expert, so I've been helping many families get better sleep. And I am specifically designing products in order to relieve all the pain points for parents that I have always seen in all the products that I've bought, and create the best and also the most affordable products for parents. And then lastly, I'm a certified hand-in-hand parenting instructor. So what that means is I help parents work with their children, their toddlers, their school-age children, in relieving some of those just everyday problems. So children who don't want to eat, or children who don't want to take a bath. We work on all of that, and there are absolutely awesome ways to connect with your child and help them go through those things. Okay? So buckle up, I'm going to go through this stuff real quick, okay? Because I want to leave time for questions at the end. We're first going to start with SIDS. So anything that you want to know about sleep or safe sleep, it has to start here with what is SIDS, because we're going to basically build all of your knowledge around safe sleep, as well as how to get your child more of it, because newborn babies do not like safe sleep, okay? So let's understand what SIDS is first. Sudden infant death syndrome. If you haven't heard about it, it's basically something that could potentially happen. It doesn't happen to many babies, but there's a very small chance that a very healthy, full-term baby could potentially stop breathing, okay, just all on their own and pass away. Over the years, we have found many, many solutions to help reduce the risk of SIDS, but not eliminate it completely. Okay, we still don't know how to do that. So I'll take you through a lot of the solutions that we have in order to reduce the risk, so that you can, again, feel a little bit less anxiety about your child's sleep. So you definitely want to start with a safe sleep environment, okay? So you want to make sure that the child is sleeping on a flat surface, and it should be firm. It should be a safe, approved mattress, for example. So if you buy a crib in Canada or in the US or in the UK, they all have really great safety guidelines. You don't want to buy a crib or a bassinet that doesn't have those guidelines attached to them, okay? So they would be safety tested and approved to be the right firmness, and you actually do want a firm mattress. An adult mattress is not firm enough. Okay, if you put a 2-pound weight on an adult mattress, it kind of sinks in. That's really dangerous for a newborn who can't maneuver their body appropriately. They might suffocate. Okay, so we want a flat, and when I say flat, it means level, not an incline. I'm going to show you guys in a second some of the more inclined surfaces that are there for babies that are not to be slept in. So the reason for no incline, not even like a 20 or 40 degree incline, is because when your baby is a newborn, their airway is kind of like a straw, okay? If you think about a straw and bending it a little bit, that airway can get cut off pretty easily, and they don't yet have the neck strength in order to hold their head up appropriately on that incline. So it's much safer for them if they are on a firm, flat surface. We also want to make sure that the crib or bassinet is clear of everything, okay? Everything. It should only be the baby and a fitted sheet, not a loose sheet, in the crib. So no blankets, bumpers, pillows, not even those breathable mesh liners that go around the crib that some people might have seen. Those mesh liners on the packaging will say that they are breathable, but they still have a risk of strangulation and entrapment. So if they come off the sides of the crib in the middle of the night because the baby was rolling or kicking or whatever they were doing, those can come loose and they can get entangled in them. So we also want to keep the place smoke-free, all of those hazards, of course. I think a lot of people feel that those are pretty intuitive. And then you always want to place a baby on their back to sleep. When they're old enough to get to their front on their own, they can stay that way. But in the beginning, when they are not, we definitely don't want to place them down on their tummy. That was kind of the old thing back in, like 30, 40 years ago. We placed babies down on their tummy because it was thought that they would get better sleep. Now we know, we have a lot of studies that have proven that is actually not safe at all. And the risk of SIDS increases dramatically when a baby is placed on their stomach, okay? You also want to use a wearable blanket or swaddle in order to replace those loose blankets in the crib. Okay, and I've got the best ones. So these are the inclined objects or products that are out there, / this one over here. This is not inclined, but it basically has like bumpers that go around the whole thing. They make the baby feel all nice and cozy like they're in the womb, but they should not sleep unattended in that. So all of the inclined ones, they should not sleep in at all. They should be awake in them. All those, swings and those mamaroos and those things, they're great, but don't let your baby sleep in them. Okay, the moment that they start getting drowsy, take them out and put them in the bassinet or the crib. With this one here, this is kind of like a dock-a-tot type of thing. That one, again, not great for unsupervised sleep because that kind of padded surrounding, which is actually pretty tight, they could roll to the side a little bit. A lot of newborns like sleeping on their side, and then their nose become wedged and they can't. So dock-a-tots, don't let them sleep, okay? Take them, or don't let them sleep without you watching them. And you actually literally have to be sitting there watching them, okay? So don't get up to go to the kitchen. This can happen very, very quickly. They can suffocate very quickly. Safe sleep do's and don'ts, okay? And anyone new to this, there is a QR code that I'm gonna have you scan at the end of this to get the presentation. So anyone who's just coming in new, just stay to the very end where the Q&A is and you'll get the presentation itself. And also there is a Q&A, so all your questions, I will answer them, okay? So all of these things help to reduce the risk of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, for anyone who's just walking in. Breastfeeding if you can, okay? It's not a mandatory thing, but if you can do it, then breastfeeding actually helps reduce the risk of SIDS. Pacifiers also help reduce the risk of SIDS. So I always recommend to my clients, as a newborn, yes, you do want them to have a pacifier, so keep offering it. If they don't like it in the very beginning, just keep offering it on a daily basis. But at 6 months, that's when you really want to wean them off a pacifier. It's not going to benefit them anymore. And what we want is them to be sucking so that their brain and their body has a constant kind of communication. That's the thing that's going to help reduce the risk of SIDS, okay? Staying drug and alcohol free, of course, giving lots of tummy time in order to help strengthen those neck and back muscles, avoiding swaddling once the baby starts showing signs of rolling over. So once the baby is trying to roll over, you got to take them out of the swaddle. It's not safe anymore. They have to have free range of motion of their legs and their arms to be able to, if they do roll over, position their body and head in a way that is safe for them to sleep. We also want to avoid products and devices that go against safe sleep guidelines, especially those that claim to prevent SIDS and sleep-related deaths. On my Sleep of Mind website, I've got an awesome blog post about that, and it goes into all the detail. If you ever want to know more about home apnea monitors, so the Owlet, the Nanit, There's a Levana one, there's a Sensu one, there's a whole bunch of them out there. They're really expensive, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AP, does not recommend the use of them for many, many reasons. My article goes into it. Number one, they do not reduce the risk of SIDS. There's nothing that can reduce the risk of SIDS, or else I would be showing it to you right now, okay? Nothing that can actually take away. So a lot of people think that it prevents SIDS. There's no way to prevent. We're just reducing the risk. Those home apnea monitors, what they do is they indicate whether the child is breathing. And so if the child takes a pause in the breathing, it's going to sound an alarm. But for newborns, it's very common. It's normal for them to have a bit of a break in breathing, okay? So they might stop breathing for a few seconds. That's very normal. They grow out of that. But basically, if you buy these monitors, you're going to be woken up all the time by these false readings. Your anxiety is probably going to increase, and you're not going to get a lot of sleep. And you're also going to have paid probably $300 to $500. So AAP doesn't recommend them. I don't recommend them, but they are helpful for some people who have multiple kind of health issues going on if they want to help monitor other things not breathing. So these things also monitor other aspects of your baby. Okay, and then also not letting your baby get too hot. I'm going to go over the right temperature for sleep in a little bit, but overheating is a major risk of SIDS as well. And then getting that regular medical care, of course, you would always want to do that, right? So one of the big things to helping get your newborn much longer stretches of sleep is monitoring their sleepy cues. These are things that I didn't know when I had a newborn, and I wish I knew them, because if you can nail this from the very beginning, if you're not waiting until, the wrong times, you're going to have a newborn that sleeps much better than mine did, who just never slept at all, okay? We want to prevent your child from getting overtired. So if you've never heard that word before, it basically means elevated cortisol in their system. Cortisol is there to keep your body awake, but if you have too much of it, it makes falling asleep really hard. So stage 1 sleepy signs are looking or turning away from stimulation. So if you're holding your baby and you've been smiling at them and they're smiling at you and everything's good, and all of a sudden after 30 minutes they start not really wanting to look at you anymore, that's what we mean. Or staring off into the distance, kind of in this glazed kind of look. Stage 1 is when you should say, okay, great, I see stage 1, let's go for a nap, or let's go into bed, okay, for the night. So stage 1 is the time where you actually do want to start getting your nap and bedtime routine going. Stage 2 is what you would ideally see when your baby is going through the nap or bedtime routine, okay? But if you're waiting until you see stage 2, then you're getting a little late. Then you got to speed things up a bit, okay? So that's the yawning, the frowning, the pulling the eating, or they're just really hyper. So if your baby's been awake for a long period of time and all of a sudden they start looking like they're really energetic, then that actually means that they're overtired. Maybe they haven't shown any of those signs, or maybe you've looked away and you've missed, the staring or the ear pulling and all that kind of stuff. So it's just to help you guys understand what's going on with your child. You're not going to nail it every time. It's not going to be perfect. But the more information you have, the better prepared you are in order to not go through what I went through, right? So you want to use those sleepy cues in combination with the newborn wake windows, which I'm going to go through in a second, okay? First, we're going to talk about sleep environment. So this is not the safe sleep environment. This is a little bit different. This sleep environment is specifically for helping your baby, number one, feel like they are still in the womb, which is what we want. For newborns, they need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. They don't want to go from womb to world and have it be a dramatically different transition. We still need to keep them feeling like they're in the womb when they want to go to sleep, because sleep is a very vulnerable state for us, right? As you guys know, right? When we're sleeping, there's lots of things that could happen. Something could attack us. Something bad could happen. And babies are very primitive compared to adults, and so they're going to be much more sensitive to their sleep environment. And if they feel very safe and secure and bundled, then that's going to say to them, I can go to sleep. That's fine. So think about the womb right now. There's no light. There's a lot of white noise. And those are the two things from a sleep environment perspective that are going to help them feel like it's okay to go to sleep. So you want it to be pitch black. If you need a night light because you're nursing or something like that, I recommend a red night light, because that's the only type of light that is not going to disrupt melatonin production. You also want that white noise that has to be consistent, just like it is in the womb right now, okay? But then when it's time to be awake, when you're changing your baby, when you're feeding your baby and playing with them, do that in the daylight. Even do that outside if you can, okay? I don't know what you guys are all pretty much due like November to January, right? So maybe not going to be for you guys, but absolutely do daylight right by the window so that you can set their circadian rhythm. They need to see that sun. They need to see that to have all the UVs and things like that in order to get to 16 weeks and have their circadian rhythm fully set. But you don't need to have them in the daylight when they're trying to sleep. The darkness is actually going to, number one, make them feel more comfortable, like they're still in the room, and number two, give them better quality sleep. And that's exactly what the cooler temperature does as well. So better quality sleep with the lower temperature, because now we're starting to interact with their physiology. 20 degrees, and then making sure that they are dressed appropriately for 20 degrees, meaning like a swaddle with one layer underneath and then a diaper. That's appropriate, okay? Anything more than that is going to have a pretty high risk of overheating, and that's what we don't want. Plus, it's also not going to work well with their hormones in order to help them go to sleep. Those newborn wake windows that we were talking about, so interacting with the sleepy cues, so you want to do both together. So when I said before, if your baby shows signs of doing this and they've been awake for a while, that's what we're talking about here. Sorry, I'm pointing at this screen, but yes, up there. 0 to 8 weeks old, less than an hour is their awake time. So basically 45 minutes to an hour is what a 0 to 8 week old can handle. Okay, they can't be awake for very long. They're going to get overstimulated, overtired. But if you see them starting to show some of those sleepy signs at like 45 minutes, for example, that's when you know, okay, we're not going to wait an hour. We're going to go now to bed. Okay, but if they're fine until like 55 minutes, then that's what you do. But just to set your expectations, we really want to try and offer sleep relatively soon after they woke up. So it really is just enough time for you to change them, feed them, do a bit of tummy time with them, and then they're probably going back to sleep again. Okay? 8 to 12 weeks old, an hour to an hour and 15, and then 12 to 16 weeks old is an hour and a half to 2 hours. All right? And that's when we start offering sleep. I'm not saying that they have to be sleeping in 2 hours, just that you have to kind of have the lights off, and that's the first opportunity for them to fall asleep. Now, the sleep feed routine is really, really critical. Once you guys deliver your baby, you're going to be talking to your doctor a lot. After 2 days, after 2 weeks, and after 6 weeks, you're going to do lots of check-ins with them. You're going to keep tabs on how your baby is growing and how much they weigh. So that's a really important factor. But once they get to a certain place, we really want to put them on a more strict sleep and feed routine a lot earlier than I think a lot of people expect. So at 4 weeks, you can already start a sleep routine or a bedtime routine. So at 4 weeks, they can already start understanding patterns. And what I mean by a pattern is, for a nap or a bedtime routine, when you do the same things in the same order every time, and that end result is them going to sleep, eventually they're going to start expecting sleep. So just like how when you see like a really delicious pizza or burger on TV, you might start salivating, so your brain already kind of expects picture of pizza, salivate, I'm going to eat it. Okay? Same thing with the nap routine or the bedtime routine. If the baby starts learning that, jammies and diaper and sleep sack equals sleep, then their body is actually going to start getting sleepy during those steps once it starts kind of seeing this routine over and over again. So that can actually help you. You don't actually need to rock your baby to sleep as much as you would if you didn't have a routine, if you're just kind of putting them in the crib right away. And then at 6 weeks, we actually want to start moving bedtime to 7 p.m. and morning wake to 7 a.m. So what that means is during the nighttime hours, any wake-ups, you want to keep things calm, dark, and not a lot of interaction. So if baby wakes back up at 10 p.m., for example, we're not putting them in any kind of light. We're not turning all the lights on. We're not playing with them and all that kind of stuff. What we're doing is we're keeping the lights off or very dim. We're just taking care of their needs, like diaper and feed, and then we're putting them right back to sleep. After 7 a.m. though, any wake-ups, yes, we are, playing. We're in daylight, all of that type of stuff, and that's going to help set their circadian rhythm. And if anyone ends up having a newborn that has day-night confusion, which basically means that the baby is way more awake in the night, in our night, than during the daytime, this schedule is going to help correct that. Okay. The last point here is around 6 weeks, or whenever your general practitioner, your pediatrician, midwife, etc., whenever they say that it's okay to do what I'm saying here, then do that, just according to weight. But generally, if your baby is healthy and developing well, then around 6 weeks, you can feed them every 3 hours during the day, and then every 4 hours at night. Okay, and on this schedule, that works out to about 5 day feeds and 2 night feeds. So of course we only want to wake up twice at night, right? Between 7 and 7, that would be awesome as newborns. This is achievable if we actually schedule everything. That means if your baby is sleeping, let's say at 10 p.m. and it's time to feed them because it was 4 hours, that means you actually want to do a dream feed. So you pick them up and you feed them, and then you put them back down, okay? So that whole adage of don't wake a sleeping baby, I don't know who came up with, I would love to talk to them. We do need to structure things if we want to get more sleep, okay? So you want to fill their tummy consistently. Don't wait for your baby to wake up and cry. You want to get ahead of the hunger, okay? And that, I'm not saying to you though, if it's less than 4 hours and your baby wakes with a very hungry cry, absolutely, you can feed them, okay? We're not saying you have to force them to wait for 4 hours, but if you start trying to get in the habit of this routine, eventually the baby is going to be able to get to 4 hours, okay? Especially if they're taking in 5 really good feeds during the day. Awesome. Okay, so pro tips for newborns who hate the bassinet, which was my daughter, and lots of other infants as well. If you look at Facebook groups, you'll see that all over the place. So the reason why some babies hate the bassinet is just from a prehistoric standpoint. Back in caveman days, it was really dangerous if you just left the baby out in the field, right? So babies have instincts of, I need to feel safe, I need to feel, like I'm with someone or I'm being rocked in some way so that I know that I'm close to caregivers. So it is natural for babies to hate their bassinet. That's how we think of it. They don't actually hate the bassinet. They just don't feel safe. So one of the things that you can do is changing the way that you put the baby down. Okay, and I'm gonna try. Okay, so I'm gonna just demo it with the microphone. Okay. So then you roll your baby onto their side. So the baby is going down on their side, not vertically. They're going down on their side, and then you're slowly rolling them to their back because you don't want to wake them up. So it kind of looks like this.
I need more water.
That would be so much better if I had a real baby, right? So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, ask me after this. The other thing is when things are just not working, it's okay. Keep trying on a daily basis. Give yourself one time a day. But all is not lost. You can use the stroller, you can use the carrier, you can go for a ride in the car. Just remember that they shouldn't sleep in a car seat for long periods of time though, because again, as I said, they really should be sleeping on a flat surface. So once they're asleep, transfer them. Or there's a good old-fashioned yoga ball. So that's basically you on the yoga ball bouncing so that you're not rocking them personally for that long of a time. Hopefully that will lull them to sleep. You're able to transfer them into the bassinet. All right, so one of the biggest components to helping your newborn feel like they are still in the womb, there's the white noise, there's the darkness, but then they need that compression. They need that feeling of that gentle hug that they're getting right now, okay? So that's why the swaddle really is your best friend. That is how they look in the womb right now. They're kind of like this. I don't know if anyone did the 3D ultrasound, but they're sort of wrapped up like this in a ball, and they actually are self-soothing on their fingers currently, sucking their thumbs, sucking their fingers, etc. This that we've designed all of the things that you want and none of the things that you don't want. So it's got the arms up designed so that they can still self-soothe with their fingers. However, they're contained, and so that they don't activate the startle reflex. So the startle reflex is when a baby feels like they're falling, or when they're falling through different sleep cycles, they're going to startle like this, right? Or when they hear a really loud noise, they go like this, right? So then they wake themselves up. So when they're sleeping on their back, that happens all the time. If they were sleeping on their front, it wouldn't happen because they wouldn't feel like they were falling backwards. But unfortunately, in order to reduce the risk of sleep, you have to have them sleeping on their back until they're able to fully roll over on their own and they're not in a swaddle. Then they can sleep on their tummy. But for now, in the first few months, that's what they're going to need. And so babies who are not swaddled, they're going to be activating that moral reflex quite often, which is going to wake them up, and it's going to be harder for them to go back to sleep. If they are swaddled with their arms down, like a traditional swaddle, they're not able to soothe.
Oh, no, what's
soothing? Some babies will be fine just to and not itch their face or whatever they want. But a lot of babies will try and break out of that swaddle. A lot of babies hate having their arms kind of pinned down to the sides. And so then
for example, if you did
end up saying, well, I guess she needs the swaddle. So I guess there's nothing we can do, and she's just going to not sleep.
Or if you want
there is absolutely something you can do, and the swaddle is by far the most widely used swaddle. Not only are you going to get more sleep because of that design. Oh, let's see if this works. There, look at that. See baby on the right?
You know what?
This is our patent pending design that actually lets you see if baby is breathing. So you see baby Charlotte on the right hand side. It uses the light that's coming from your own baby monitor, and it reflects back to you.
You can switch to non.
Every time the torso rises and falls, you can see that change in the design.
I've had it.
And so no wires, no gadgets, no Bluetooth, no nothing crazy, and it's also not nearly as expensive as some of those breathing monitors that are out there. This is going to help you get more sleep because you don't have to go check on your baby.
And they don't.
Unless you really want to. This is going to give you more information. Sorry, I have to keep pressing the thing. This is going to give you more information about how well your baby is doing. So you decide if you need to go in and check.
Curve to get it on the
at a faster pace.
When it stays put, it makes it
visual.
They learn themselves.
And do they have elevated breathing? That is absolutely a reason to go in and check. But with the baby craft, and I have to keep clicking my little button here in order to activate this.
So brand new.
With the baby on the left, that's a traditional swaddle. We have no idea if they're breathing or not.
Spoil, right?
Yeah.
The one on the right, you get the picture. Okay.
Everyone listening to this replay gets 30% off. So just enter the code replay30 on checkout and you'll get 30% off your total order. That is 30% towards a better night's sleep, longer sleep stretches, and total peace of mind that your little one is breathing and that you're always able to just glance at the video monitor and see for yourself. That's more sleep with less anxiety.
So the question was, can you see the reflection without the baby monitor? You can, but it won't be nearly as obvious. But I do know a lot of parents who, they're sleeping with the baby next to them, but they still have the camera. So you have to think about how much of the day you're not going to be sleeping there. So for nap time, for example, you're in a different room. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you can't hear your baby anymore. Maybe there's like white noise or whatever. So you can just look over at your monitor. You don't have to check on them. And just 2 seconds to be able to see the breathing and then turn it right off. And then you don't have to wake them up. You don't have to feel them. Some people put their finger under their nose and they end up stabbing them in the face or something like that. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. White noise versus sleep sounds.
like waterfall or like lullaby. Yeah, so I could go on forever about white noise, but you need the constant drone of white noise in order for the brain to not focus on the start and stop. Okay, so I actually recommend natural organic white noise, which just means that it's just being generated. It's not pre-recorded and it has a loop, right? So the brain can actually, especially a very young brain like a baby, they can actually start to anticipate where the end of the track is and then the beginning. And for some babies, it will cue to wake up at that time.